The Mahindra XUV700 is here. The car that was slated to be the next generation of the XUV500 and has now added to its name. And given the popularity and success of that car, the successor simply had to be better. No, make that way better. And so today we want to tell you the top 5 things that went into the XUV700 to make it extra special. At number 1 for me, it has to be safety. The XUV700 is crash ready, loaded with safety tech and equipment, and has also become a new benchmark for Mahindra in terms of vehicle construction. The car's monocoque structure uses high-strength materials, and unlike the XUV500, there is advanced high-strength and ultra-high-strength steel. Overall, they make up 45% of the structure, of which the ultra-high-strength boron steel is 14%. 23% uses high-strength steel too. And this is one of the few vehicles worldwide to have a ring construction structure, which sees the use of bands of these high-strength materials in concentric circular patterns through the entire structure. That, combined with the high impact areas, getting only boron steel for added safety, make this truly crash compliant and well ahead of regulations, may I add.
And you can see the color coding here. What you're seeing in brown, yeah, that's the boron steel that we were talking about. And it's not just on this section of the car where you might imagine, okay, for side impact you need it. It's not just in the front where you think you might need it. It's also here on the sill of the vehicle. So that a lot of the force gets distributed and carried down, doesn't come into the area where the passenger is sitting. Remember, in a crash situation, that is what you want. You want the car to absorb the impact, not the person inside it.
The XUV700 is therefore 80% stiffer than the 500. That's incredible. And this keeps weight down too. So it allows for a happy balance between safety and drive dynamics. This was achieved by using new binding techniques for the metal panels.
And to give you a perspective, the 700 gets 6,570 spot welds. The predecessor, that's the 500, used to have about half that number. And the benchmark in the segment, or the best that we had until this car came along, is about 4,000. So it gives you a sense of how much more stiffness you get. The reason for that is that way the two panels, they work as one. They don't feel like two separate panels. I think that's the easiest way to explain this to you.
Most competition cars focus their spot welding on areas with more weight, but the XUV700 has the spot welds fairly evenly distributed around the body to ensure better stiffness. The car uses a plastic tailgate, by the way, and this has been done to achieve the deep recess which the designers wanted. The plastic has two parts: the flexible energy-absorbing paneling on the outside, and inside a harder support structure made of a plastic and glass fiber composite. And this has more strength than a steel panel. And before you think it was done for cost reasons, let me tell you, it would have been cheaper to make it with sheet metal. On the suspension, once again, the 700 gets a first. A new system seen so far only on some Ford sedan models in Europe, which allows the forces and movements from undulations, speed bumps, or potholes to travel laterally and not vertically. That's thanks to this control plate that attaches to the suspension assembly at the rear with a rubber bush at one end. That allows the forces to be dissipated rather than reach the cabin or rear seat. The suspension assembly overall is a lot more compact too and uses weight-saving aluminium instead of cast iron, which is stiffer and yet lighter. The car also has frequency selective damping, or FSD, which gives you variable damping pressure depending on the surface and conditions the car is traveling in.
To put it in terms which are slightly easier to understand, I think the comparison can be made to something like an adaptive air suspension, which is a lot more advanced, a lot more expensive. But why does that become important for some of those high-end cars? Well, it's again just this whole flexibility of being able to do both functions with equal measure. So what an FSD really does is brings you almost up to that level. So when it comes to conventional damping, if you want to call it that, this is literally the top of the range kind of solution, and therefore it is expensive, and yet it was adopted.
The only other mass car with FSD in the Indian market is the Jeep Compass, but that is a first generation system, while the XUV700 gets the second gen. The top end will have 7 airbags, while the base will get dual front airbags. But there would be mid variants that also have curtain airbags. And here, there are 2 new things. The curtain airbag's size, because it stretches right to the boot area to also cover the third row seats. And as you can see, unlike the conventional airbags in front that are white and have an escape valve for the gas to leave the airbag after it has deployed, the curtain will remain inflated to act as a cushion in the event of a side impact or the car tipping over in an accident. The XUV700 has a dual screen display seen usually on very high-end cars only. It has been developed by Visteon and uses multiple layers of glass and a new bonding method to get the high gloss yet low reflection surface.
And the touch response also goes up. You don't have as much reflection, which is a very big thing again in sunny conditions. You don't want to be struggling to see what's on the screen. It's got a terrific output when it comes to the sound, thanks to the Sony system. And the one thing which I want to quickly also put across, which a lot of you wrote in and asked, what happens in lower variants? Well, of course, the screen configuration changes. You get an 8-inch screen, but the good news is that screen has also been developed by the guys at Visteon. So in terms of functionality and display resolution, it is still right up there.
As you can see, this is a single piece unit with the two 10.25-inch screens built into it. On one side is the touch screen and on the other, the virtual cluster. At the heart of the system is the new generation Snapdragon Qualcomm 6GB chip.
And one quick thing I want to also clarify is something that I learned today, which I didn't know. A lot of the in-car functionality or capability, where you want to use voice commands to maybe open the sunroof, for example, none of that needs connection to the cloud or the network. That's a very big plus, because otherwise what you tend to see in a lot of cars is that, it'll keep looking for network, keep looking for connectivity, and only then carry out the function. Here, a lot of that is offline. Car functionality, all offline. Everything else, whether it's navigation, music, etc., which needs connectivity, of course, works with the inbuilt eSIM, which is from Vodafone, that is already inbuilt to it.
So that is why a 6GB microprocessor was key to ensure enough computing power. It is capable of executing 30,000 million instructions per second. It also runs the built-in Alexa virtual assistant. The XUV500 had a 1.5GB chip, and rival cars use a 4GB chip at best.
All of this computing power, all of this functionality, and then you have a lot of heat that obviously gets built up. It's this magnesium alloy at the back of this screen, which houses everything. That's crucial, because you could have had maybe a steel component, but it wouldn't have the heat absorbing capability that magnesium would have had. And this allows, even though there's a cost implication, it allows you to reduce weight, but it also gives you much better thermal management.
And there's a lot more where that came from, but you can see the level of detail, no compromise on equipment and materials, and a whole new approach to it all that Mahindra R&D has taken to get this product right. This signals a maturity in M&M's product development cycle, and so expect a lot more of what you saw here to become hygiene in future Mahindra models too.